The Mac Mini is the smallest Mac in Apple's lineup and has the smallest impact on your wallet too. And after spending over 2 months with this thing, there's just so many things that I genuinely love about the M4 Mac Mini that makes me question if I even need a Mac Studio like this one anymore. So let's talk about it. Alright, so the Mac Mini this year got a huge redesign and is now smaller than ever. This thing literally fits in the palm of my hands. Now, I know I got big hands, but still, it fits. And so it can really sit anywhere or hide anywhere on your desk, making it super easy to fit into your existing setup or build around it. Beyond that, the Mac Mini has a nice little light indicator to tell you it's on, some USB-C ports on the front so you no longer have to reach behind it to plug things in, and some Thunderbolt 4 or 5 ports in the back. And even though it doesn't really look like it has a built-in speaker for audio, but that speaker is, well, it's not that great. And another not so great thing, they moved the power button onto the bottom back of the machine. To be fair, while that is a very strange location to place a power button, I really haven't touched the power button once since I got this machine, except for the times where I literally had to unplug this thing to take these pretty little product shots. So really, it's not that big of a deal unless you live in an area with frequent power outages. But in terms of just size and shape, it really is like a shrunken down Mac Studio. So what I really like about the Mac Mini and really the bigger brother Mac Studio is that it acts more like the brain of your computer, and you get to decide what the arms, the eyes, the legs, or whatever are. With any other Mac, everything is built in or provided, like a screen, webcam, keyboard, and mouse. With the Mac Mini, they cut out all of that and just provide you this nice little brick and a power cable. And the benefit of that, this is Apple's cheapest Mac, and it is such a good value at that price. This means you can reuse monitors, keyboards, webcams, mice, speakers, and microphones that you already own with this Mac Mini and not be forced to have them packaged in like you would with something like the iMac. I'm making a video where I try to beat the iMac by getting accessories for the Mac Mini for the exact same price as an iMac, and I've had a lot of fun making that video, so be on the lookout for that if you're interested. It's coming next. This Mac Mini gives you so much flexibility because if something breaks, you can just replace that piece instead of replacing the entire Mac or needing to get repairs done. And in 4 or 5 years, when you're thinking about replacing your Mac Mini, it would probably be for another Mac Mini, which costs way less than buying a new iMac outright. Obviously, it's not as pretty or clean looking as the iMac, but you save money in the long run. So it's all about what you prioritize in your own life. But I will say, because the Mac Mini doesn't have any frills and doesn't come with any frills, once you start adding accessories, the ports on the Mac Mini fill up fast. And it would have been really nice to keep a couple of regular USB-A ports as well for some more legacy peripherals. I'm pretty sure consumers that are much more price conscious will be reusing older USB-A devices. All right, so let's talk performance of this little brick. There's 2 versions of the Mac Mini, an M4 version and M4 Pro version that costs over twice as much. In my hand, I have the base model M4 version, which I'd imagine most people would get. And that base model runs silently doing all the tasks that I throw at it. I've had no snags using this as my everyday machine doing productivity type tasks. I didn't run into any snags, and that's probably because starting with this and all the other newly released Macs, Apple updated the minimum amount of RAM that you get in these machines from 8 to 16. So this makes the M4 Mac Mini a much better value than the previous generation machine. So right out of the gate, the base model is really competent, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Where things get a little messy is when I start video editing on it. Editing 4K videos in Final Cut Pro, it does fine. There's a teeny tiny, super slight delay when splicing or trimming footage on the timeline that I didn't see on my M4 Pro machine. And what it really didn't like was when I decided to video edit, record the screen, and use magnetic mask all at the same time. Of course, that's a really niche and a much more power user type scenario, but that does tell you that there is a limit to what this thing can do. But besides those 2 minor issues, I didn't feel any other differences in usage. Like on paper, I know that in benchmarks, the Pro is faster, but for the person who's actually interested in a machine like this, the average everyday person, it's more than enough. It's really amazing for such a budget-friendly computer too. Now obviously, if you do anything graphically intensive at all, like photo, video, or 3D work, please just get the more powerful M4 Pro machine. That way you have a bit more headroom and you'll have a much better time in the long run. But for the most part, the regular M4 is fine for those 90% of people who don't do that. Like the name implies, the Pro is better for people who use their computer for more graphically intensive tasks. All right, so that does sound like this YouTube thing that I'm doing here, right? So what about me? So for my own usage, would this Mac Mini be able to replace my Mac Studio as my primary machine? Well, spoiler alert, I've actually edited the last few videos on this channel solely on the M4 Mac Mini. I did have little gripes about this that I mentioned earlier with Final Cut Pro, but overall it works very, very well. So it makes it really easy to recommend the M4 Mac Mini or the M4 Pro version of the Mac Mini because it's been such a great, fantastic little replacement. And now I think that I'll be using this as my main desktop for a while just to see how it goes long term at replacing my more beefier M1 Max Mac Studio. It's not as powerful on paper as the Mac Studio, but we'll see how that goes. If you're personally thinking about grabbing this machine, there's a big elephant in the room that we have to talk about. The Mac Mini is not cheap to upgrade. To get to 2 terabytes of storage, Apple is charging $800. For reference, if you were to go out and buy a high-end 2 terabyte SSD today, it can be had for under $200. Basically, Apple's charging you 4 times the price because you wanted it integrated in your tiny little new Mac Mini. The same goes for RAM. It's abhorrently overpriced. The only upgrade that isn't is the 10 gigabit Ethernet if you think you need it. Even that is on the higher side of the cost for 10 gigabit Ethernet. So is there even a solution to these crazy upgrade prices? Well, there are some. If you need 10 gig Ethernet, just get the upgrade. A Thunderbolt to 10 gig Ethernet adapter is like twice as expensive. For RAM, you can't. You're stuck with whatever configuration you decide for that one. But if you do need more storage, you can just buy a nice 2 or 4 terabyte external SSD and keep it permanently connected to your Mac Mini for the rest of its life. Since the Mac Mini is a stationary computer, I don't think you'd mind having something permanently attached to it, especially if it saves you hundreds of dollars in the process. So yeah, I don't recommend upgrading at least the storage part at all and would just save all the storage upgrades to buy it later with external drives. Okay, since Apple makes upgrades so expensive, you may be thinking about grabbing a refurb model, maybe the M2 Mac Mini that uses the older design. But just like with the MacBook Pro this year, with the upgrade to 16 gigabytes of RAM as standard on the Mac Mini, it makes the older year refurb models a worse value compared to just straight up buying new, especially since the M4 Mac Mini goes on sale pretty often too. So it's pretty hard to look away from the base model M4 Mac Mini, even if you decide to compare them to Windows PCs at this price. All right, so at this point, it's conclusion time. The M4 Mac Mini so far has been probably the best value Mac I've ever tried and is as price competitive as ever. It's a phenomenal machine considering it's all squeezed together in such a cute, tiny little package. This makes a perfect family computer that just sits there, taking up so little space on your desk. And honestly, it's replaced my Mac Studio for now, and it's definitely a worthwhile, value-oriented machine for those on a budget. But the moment you start to upgrade the machine, it can get out of hand super quick. And at that point, it may go from a great value to a very, very bad one. Anyway, what do you personally think? Is the Mac Mini enticing to you in any way? Did you upgrade to any config outside of the base model? Why? Was it for the M4 Pro? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.